Oh, we have, yes, we have Alan Gleason from Tokyo.
We have a big group.
Hello, Alan. Can you?
Hello, everybody. Hi, how do you do? Hi, Shigen, and hajime masu to the rest of you.
I cannot see your face. Can you? Oh, okay, I got it. I got it now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, very good, very good.
Oh.
Okay.
We have Sean as well, Sean Schroeder.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Sean. Where is the Sean?
Here.
Huh? Okay, we got Sean. Okay, very good. And we have 31 participants. Wow. Welcome to Cultural News and the Miracle Night by Culture News. It's really miracles happening. In a very short time, I prepared these programs, and I'm so surprised that so many people participated in these programs. And thank you very much. I like to start these programs. Japanese traditional music, particular, we focus on shakuhachi. About a month ago, I had another webinar meeting about rakugo. And in that time, Chaki Yanagimto participated in, and she suggested me to have the webinar to introduce shakuhachi documentaries, which she produced the films. And then this program was started. The film film is about a very famous shakuhachi player and master, John Kaizan Neptune in Japan. And John's son, David Neptune, made these films. And David is also living in Los Angeles for several years. So then I invite, I invite David and Chaki, and then I try to find some shakuhachi player in Los Angeles area, and also player of traditional Japanese music. So today's theme is about traditional Japanese music in Los Angeles. And in the very beginning, I like to ask some participant, why do you like Japanese music? So let's start with Elliot.
What attracted me to Japanese music, specifically shakuhachi in the beginning.
Yes. Oh, and would you introduce yourself? So sure. Elliot is participated in Santa Rosa, California.
My name is Elliot Kanchin Callan. I am a Kinko-style shakuhachi player in Santa Rosa. My teacher is David Hansuke Wheeler of Boulder, Colorado, as well as his teacher, Kawase Junsuke III in Tokyo, the head of Chikuyusha, which is the largest Kinko-style shakuhachi school there. I've been playing for about 20 years. I teach, I perform, I talk about it. It's pretty much taken over my life. I didn't start out that way. I was actually raised as a concert pianist. It's a long story that I won't go into here, how I wound up here. But what attracted me initially was hearing a shakuhachi player back in the 60s named Yamaguchi Goro, who became a living national treasure. And what attracted me to it was the sound. And I think a lot of us started off that way, hearing the sound of the instrument and the expressiveness of it. That's what attracted me to it. And being a piano player, of course, the shakuhachi can do things that pianos can't. And I found it very, very attractive. Once I started playing shakuhachi, I was drawn not just to the solo music, but to the ensemble music as well. So like my teacher, David, I'm very attracted and love performing ensemble music. So the sound of shakuhachi, koto, shamisen together is very, very attractive to me as well. And that's what got me started.
So what is a big difference between Western music and Japanese music? And what parts or what kind of the element really attracts you?
Me?
Yes.
Japanese music has different form and different scales than most Western music. So we're different sounds and different tones, different timbres than we're used to here in the West. And some people are put off by it. I was attracted to it. I also enjoy different aspects of compositions in Japanese music. They don't rely as much on harmony, for instance, in traditional music. There's a lot of beautiful melodic going on, and that attracted me as well. So yeah, a lot of different things, timbrally, dynamically, melodically, all of it is very different and very much of itself, and I like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go to Sean Schroeder. Is it? Schroeder. Hi, hello, Sean. Hi. So Sean is participating from his home in Simi Valley. He has a beautiful shakuhachi room in his home, and also he has a workshop to make a lot of shakuhachi in his homes. So can you introduce yourself a little bit more?
Okay. So yeah, my name is Shozan Schultz. So I started shakuhachi playing about 15 years now.
15 years.
I started with Bill Shozan Schultz, and then also with Chaki sensei. And also very interested, like you said, in making shakuhachi. I first got into it when I was, first found out about it when I was very young, probably 12, 15 years old. My father actually had like a wooden shakuhachi, and he kind of fiddled around with it for his yoga practice. And I like to paint, like I was into painting like Japanese landscapes. I was actually in general into Japanese landscapes and koi ponds. So when I would paint, I started, I first listened to a recording of shakuhachi on like KPFK. It was like a world music's program on the radio station. And I was just really into the grittiness and earthiness of the sound of the shakuhachi. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And it wasn't until I was about 25 when I first started taking lessons and then learning. And from there, it's just been, spiraling out of control, I want to say. So that's pretty much that sums it up. So yeah, now I that's kind of like you said, it took over my life too. Yeah. So at this point, I'm almost to the point where I'm thinking about maybe selling my business and this full-time shakuhachi. Yeah.
Okay. And Sean, can you tell us your experience with John Kaizan Neptune? You visit his place.
So actually, he came to my house. He was visiting Los Angeles to visit. He was working and also visiting his son. So I contacted him and asked him if he would come to my place and make time in his schedule. And he had a free day. So I picked him up and he spent the whole day, came to my house, teaching me like his techniques of tuning the shakuhachi and different things. And he enjoyed it, I think. Like I said, he spent the whole day, gave him lunch, and that was pretty much it. And it was pretty generous of him to do that. And I enjoyed it and learned a few of his techniques of tuning the shakuhachi. So
He was excited about the lunch.
yeah, it wasn't much either. It was just a simple sandwich. I thought Mayumi was going to go all out and make this good Japanese meal, but she just made a simple sandwich. It was kind of disappointing, actually, but he enjoyed it. I think, it was enough for him.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's go to Biru Shozan Schultz sensei. Hi, hello.
Hi.
Can you, yes, can you tell us your experience of the shakuhachi? How did you start your shakuhachi playing?
In the early 1980s, I had a chance to go to Japan and to study Japanese temple gardens, which I was interested in. And when I was there was something that was very attractive for me about being in Japan. And I made the decision that I wanted to live there and explore it a little bit more. I told myself, I'll give it a year. So I came back to Los Angeles and I wrapped up my affairs, left my company where I was working, and then I went back to Japan. And when I went back, I still continued studying Japanese temple gardens, but a memory came to my mind. And the memory was that when I was a high school student, I heard a Smithsonian recording, an ethnic recording, and one of the pieces on there was shakuhachi. And I remember how it had an effect on me, that it was like something I had never heard before. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what instrument it even was. I just knew that it was Japanese. So I thought, well, I'm in Japan now living. I have a year. Maybe I could start to explore shakuhachi because I had time. And I was fortunate to be able to get a shakuhachi teacher. And I started lessons. And after my first year was winding down, I realized that it wasn't enough to stay in Japan for just 1 year. So I extended it for another year. And then after a couple of more extensions, before I knew it, I was living in Japan and Kyoto for 10 years, studying shakuhachi. And at first, the shakuhachi obviously led to playing ensemble music. So I got more interested in Japanese traditional music, and then that led to learning about minyo. But my main interest was studying shakuhachi. Just something about the sound. It's once you hear it, or once it enters into your body, if you're compatible with that, you can never let it go. And like Sean said, and an earlier speaker, it takes over your life. And that's been the case for me. When eventually I came back to Los Angeles in 1994, I started teaching shakuhachi at UCLA and the Ethnomusicology Department, and started lecturing about shakuhachi and Japanese culture at different universities in the area, and started private teaching. And it just kept snowballing, kept growing and growing and growing. And
it's good, yeah.
And then shiranai uchi ni oji-san.
Excuse me, Bill. Who was your teacher in Kyoto?
I'm sorry?
Who was your teacher in Kyoto?
I was learning Tozan shakuhachi with Koyama Seizan. So I was his deshi for 10 years. And then when I started to learn Meian shakuhachi, that was with Fukushima Josui, also in Kyoto.
So
great memories.
Yeah. So in Los Angeles, how much is a shakuhachi split? So how many school had a class to teach shakuhachi, or how many students did run shakuhachi?
In the 7 years that I was at UCLA in the Ethnomusicology Department, I probably taught at least 50 or 60 students, because in the Ethnomusicology Department, the requirement for those students was that they had to take at least 2 different instruments. So it was their choice, and then eventually they could specialize in something if their specialty was going to be Japanese music or Indian music or whatever it might be. Some of those students went on to study with me after they graduated, private students. And also I had some students at USC. They didn't have a shakuhachi department, but one enterprising student there found me and talked his flute department into having me teach off-site flute students who were interested in shakuhachi. So that accounted for a half a dozen more students at those 2 universities.
Wow, it's good, very good, yeah.
Yeah, for most of the students at the university, it was just a taste, because they would just stay with me for 1 quarter or 2 quarters or 3 quarters, and then they would move on or graduate or have other interests. But it planted the seed in their head, and then obviously there was a lot of concerts, opportunities associated with that at UCLA at that point.
So do students have to buy their own shakuhachi, or they can loan from the school?
Yeah, at that time, what I was doing is I was buying wooden shakuhachi from Japan.
No, I mean at UCLA.
At UCLA, I was buying wooden shakuhachi in Japan. UCLA had a few instruments, but the process of getting them to be loaned to you and then the upkeep on them, some of them were fragile and broken and in disarray. So I felt it was easier. I would just buy the instruments and then I would rent them to the students for $25 a quarter. And if they wanted to buy the shakuhachi, which many of them did, then I sold it to them for the same price that I got it for.
Oh, I see, I see.
And then as I started teaching privately, I also used wooden shakuhachis in the beginning with students until some of them wanted to, at that time, go on and get a bamboo instrument. Now, the wooden shakuhachis are outrageously expensive, even in Japan. And the Yu shakuhachi, which is made out of cast plastic, for maybe $150 plus shipping, that's probably the way to go now for most students who are just beginning.
Oh, I see, I see.
And there's also John Kipros's bell shakuhachi, another molded instrument. It's around 200. A slightly different sound than the Yu. People prefer one or the other, depending on their tastes covered.
Yeah, its good point is that it's cheap, so it's a minimal investment for a new student before they decide if they're going to stick with it or not.
So Sean, can you advertise your shakuhachi to us? Sean is making shakuhachi in Los Angeles, available.
Is all the inventory.
Customers.
Yeah, no, I have a website. It's shakuhachi.us. And yeah, it's going really well. I've been selling them more and more actually during this pandemic. I think because people are stuck inside and they're investing in more hobbies and things to do like that. So it's been keeping me busy making them every weekend. That's all I do is tinker away in my shop, which is, I enjoy it as much as time as I can get in there. So yeah, and the flutes are getting really good. At least I'm really satisfied with them. So yeah.
If you don't mind me ask you kind of what is the price arrangement?
At this point, I'm not really doing like the plastic kind of beginner ones. So I'm just kind of focused on making better, high quality ones. So I'm actually going to be upping my prices. I have been selling between like 12 to 1,500. I'm going to be going more like 15 to 2,000.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And please visit shakuhachi.us. Is this correct?
Yes.
Shakuhachi.us. Yes, please visit shakuhachi.us for checking Sean's Shakuhachi. So let's go to Mike. Mike Penny, can you turn on your microphone?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. So the Mike is Shamisen players, and in this meeting we have bigger themes: Japanese music, Japanese traditional music to American peoples. So, Mike, you are playing the shamisen, and can you tell us how did you start your shamisen and current activities?
Well, I've been interested in playing music for as long as I can remember. I started playing guitar and drums around 9. And back then, when I was that young, of course, I was only exposed to music that was on TV or the radio or my parents' generation of music. So I wasn't really exposed to much world music. But the older I got, the more curious I became in different styles of music until I attended a music camp, a world music camp held in Northern California in the woods. And that's where I first saw the shamisen being performed by the person who later became my teacher, a half American, half Japanese guy named Kevin Metz, who now lives in Japan. But
excuse me, where are you growing up? Where are you growing up?
I was born in Texas, but grew up mostly here in Southern California.
Southern California, I see.
Yeah. So I saw it being played, and a lot like it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it was about shamisen that drew me in, but I guess it's a bit of a mixture of the reasons Bill and Sean and Elliot gave about shakuhachi. It's hard to pinpoint, but it's powerful. There's, especially when you watch shamisen being performed, there's a high energy instrument, especially tsugaru shamisen, which is the style of shamisen I play. I play tsugaru shamisen, which is folk music from the region of northern Japan called Tsugaru. And it's very energetic and passionate, and there's a lot of power behind the playing. So on a kind of surface level, that's what first caught my attention, piqued my interest. But then, like I think maybe, was it Elliot? Bill, someone mentioned how vastly different Japanese music is to Western music. From a sort of music theory standpoint, like they mentioned, harmony or the lack thereof is really interesting in Japanese music. The scales, a lot of pentatonic scales, especially in shamisen, 5-note scales, and scales you just don't hear very often in Western music. So just my natural kind of curiosity in music led me down the path to investigate Japanese music more. And then I kind of got hooked by not just the music, but Japanese culture in general. So I began learning Japanese language and visiting Japan, and I studied in Japan for about 2 years in Tokyo and northern Japan. So by the time that I had done that, I was in for life. I was a lifer. So.
Good, very good. Okay, thank you very much. So let's go to Kenny Endo, Taiko Master Kenny Endo. Kenny-san.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, okay. So Kenny Endo is participating from the Honolulu, Hawaii. And the Kenny Endo is a very famous percussionist, traditional percussionist, not only the regular taiko players. And you've been performing in the States for very long time, and also you are the observer of how traditional Japanese music has been spread in the States. So can you tell us your viewpoint, how shakuhachi is spread and with the conjunction with your performance, taiko performance?
Yeah, I think shakuhachi may be the most widely played instrument outside of Japan. Maybe shakuhachi and shamisen, and then taiko also. But traditionally, shakuhachi and taiko are not played together because shakuhachi is volume-wise, it doesn't cut through like a shinobue or a high-pitched flute. But what I liked about the shakuhachi was the very rich sound and deep resonance that it had. And so by using microphones to balance the sound, we're able to use shakuhachi in our performances. I met John Neptune when I first moved to Japan. I moved to Japan in 1980, intending to stay for just a year. I ended up staying there for 10 years. But John Neptune was one of the people I collaborated with. We've performed together in his gigs. He's been on my recordings. We made a CD together in London a few years back. But there are a lot of, foreign shakuhachi players that have reached, an international, they've reached a world-class level, so that it's very nice to see that there are really a lot of really great players, and as well as the people on the panel today. So I'm really happy to see this interest and this the spread of Japanese music. As a taiko player, I was involved on the traditional side, what is called Hogaku Hayashi, or the drumming from the Kabuki Theater and Nagauta Hayashi. I also studied a music called Edo Bayashi, which is Tokyo Festival music. I was in Japan for 10 years, and even that was not enough. I barely scratched the surface of what there is to learn. As everyone knows, there's a saying in Japan, "Kiri ga nai," which means there's no end to this. Once you start studying it, the more you realize how little you know. But it's been a great journey along the way to be able to work with, shamisen players, koto players, shakuhachi players, shinobue players. Yeah, one of the people that I work with a lot, unfortunately, he passed away over 10 years ago, was Masakazu Yoshizawa, who played shakuhachi as well as shinobue, and he was also involved in the Los Angeles studio scene, doing a lot of recordings. But I was fortunate to have him on some of my tours, as well as work with his group called Kokin Gumi. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, thank you very much explaining about Yoshizawa-san's histories in these meetings. Okay, so let's go to David. David Neptune, it's your turn.
Hello.
Yeah, so yes, Kenny Endo just mentioned he played with Kaizan Neptunes. And so then can you explain us the work of John Kaizan Neptune in shakuhachi aspect? I mean, how shakuhachi music is spread in the world.
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me on this panel. It's really great to be here with all of you guys, connecting in this time when it's harder to connect. Yeah, to sort of introduce myself, I guess I started listening to shakuhachi when I was in the womb. My dad has always been playing shakuhachi for as long as I can remember. And
so you were born and raised in Japan?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Japan.
In Japan, in Chiba Prefecture.
Chiba Prefecture, yeah. The city's called Kamogawa, which the claim to fame for them is the Sea World of Japan is in Kamogawa.
Mm.
And so my dad is a surfer, and he wanted to be in a place where he could make shakuhachi, get a lot of bamboo for making shakuhachi, but also have the ocean nearby to surf. So Kamogawa was a natural choice for him, and it's not too far from Tokyo. So yeah, so I grew up there until I was about the age of 15 and went to high school in the US and got into photography. And from there, my interest kind of evolved into filmmaking. And I was actually working with Chaki on a film here in LA with the director Takashi Shimizu, who made a horror film called The Grudge, and got to know Chiaki quite a bit. And when we finished the job, I said to her, you know, I've been meaning to make a film about my dad for a while, and she was really interested in doing that. And so that's how the whole project got started. In the beginning was just the two of us feeling like, oh, maybe this is a good idea to tell the story of John Kaizan Neptune. So yeah, his story is he discovered the shakuhachi in Hawaii in an ethnomusicology course at the University of Hawaii, and went to Japan to further his studies, and essentially never left. He came back to get some things where he grew up in San Diego, but ever since then he's lived in Japan. He still does, and he's still in Kamogawa making flutes mainly now, since there's really no live performances now. So he's really focused on making flutes and selling a lot of flutes in China right now. A lot of people are ordering flutes from China. So that's what he's focusing on. And yeah. Oh yeah, this is him. There he is.
Okay. I saw your films, and my impression is, oh, this is a family stories. I mean, very, very good family stories. And
thank you. Yeah, it's we worked on the film for a long time. It took about 6 years to make the film. And I really just started off wondering what the challenges were that he went through when he first came to Japan, which was in the early 70s. And there were some challenges, but it was mainly pretty simple things. Like, for instance, there was no shower in the apartment that he lived in, so he had to go to the Sinto, the the bath, the public bathhouse. And that was something he was a little uncomfortable with at first, or that sort of thing. And then I think my father's a very focused person, and I think he was able to kind of apply a lot of Western way of practice into the Japanese traditional way of playing shakuhachi. So where there aren't a lot of etudes or practice pieces in traditional music, he brought sort of his knowledge of Western music and scales and things like that, and really just focused on the technical aspect and really practice technique specifically. And so that approach made him really improve, I think, quite fast. And I think there was there were maybe some in the traditional Japanese world that sort of saw that a little bit as a threat, and there was some, maybe credit that wasn't given where it could have been at times. And so that was one of his sort of earlier struggles. But for the most part, if you ask him, what were your experiences like, they're really positive, and people really accept him and respect him in Japan as well. And so as a filmmaker, as a son, this was really nice to hear, as someone who also grew up in Japan and who, I don't exactly know how I identify myself. I'm kind of Japanese, I'm kind of American, I'm both. But as for me, that was really nice to hear. But as a filmmaker, it doesn't make for a very good story if someone's life is great and positive, and all the experiences are positive, and where's the conflict? You have some sort of challenge that your main character is overcoming to have a good story. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that with Chiaki and with our DP Bennett and our other producer Mike, and eventually it just sort of became apparent that our family story is where a lot of the conflict, quote unquote story conflict is going to come from. So I reluctantly went back and filmed more interviews with my mother and asked her about her divorce with my dad and, what was really going on and, things that as a son you don't necessarily want to ask your mother about on camera with lots of people and lights and, that whole experience I don't think is the most enjoyable. But it turned out to be, I think, the most powerful part of the film. And I really felt like I was able to honor a lot of the effort that my mother put in to really support my dad when she's in Japan, as well as my mom is also American. And so she was in Japan for such a long time, raising me and my sister while my dad was on tour, playing music and making shakuhachi and things like that. So, yeah, so I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, but that's
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So during making the film, did you get to know your parents a lot deeper than you had before?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, both my parents for sure. Especially my dad. He always says as well, it was just nice to get to spend so much time together as adults, Once I basically left home when I was 15 because I went to high school in the US while the rest of my family was still in Japan. And I went to college in the US and then kind of settled down here in LA. So I haven't spent that much, extended time with my dad as an adult. And so being able to do that was really, really fun. And yeah, and I gotta say, he really supported me through the filmmaking process as well. He was really patient. And when I hit a lot of those roadblocks where it was really difficult to sort of, 6 years is a long time, and to try and finish a project, it was at times, you have these feelings of, I just want to give up, but he was really there, super supportive, and just always there to listen if anything wasn't going well, and curious about how the process is going and all of that. So I think that definitely, deepened our relationship, and the same with my mom. She really, I think she's watching right now, but she says that she's worried about the parts of her in the film, but I think I literally would not have a film if my mom wasn't in it. I don't think it would be interesting enough to be a feature film. No offense, Dad, but just simply because of that entertainment value, of conflict and that sort of thing that you have to work in, which was also a really hard thing as a son to like try and objectively look at your own family. It's like, oh man, that was a big challenge. But I think because they both knew how much effort that I was putting into it, they really appreciated it, and it deepened, I think, all of our relationships, but also a healing kind of process for the family too, to like look at some things that maybe aren't so easy to look at, but in a way that just, it doesn't, there's no opinion about it. At least I tried not to have any opinion about anything in the film, and just to kind of present what happened. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So can you show us a trailer of the film?
Sure. Can I share my screen? I think
yes, I set up the.
Okay, sounds great. I think you may have to make me a co-host or a host.
No, just share the screen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Let me make sure I have the right thing pulled up.
Yes, we got it. Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Is everybody seeing also the bottom panel of everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I can get that. There we go. All right, and here is the video.
I'm just this guy who fell in love with the sound of shakuhachi.
今までなかった自由があるんですよ。それを感じさせる音楽をあの人はやったんですね。
John Neptune. He is somebody who's been able to change the game as an outsider.
When I first came to Japan, this is like 1970, I just had one contact, and that was Miyoshi Genzan. お久しぶり、どうもありがとう。フルートの練習曲500回ずつやった。1日10時間練習した。
42年前の尺八コンクール予選ではねトップだった。でもね決戦の時審査する人が点数を抑えて外人だから。お寺の文化とかそういうところで尺八をする時にどうしてもやっぱり外人やとなんかちょっと合わない。
But he realized he would have to leave that conservative Kyoto environment. He started doing his own thing.
As a composer, I always worked with the space of jazz.
尺八でレコード大賞。何これってあれセンセーションだったんですね。Gradually, each job he got would lead to another job. It was really hard to get him to kind of come down to earth. Didn't plan to have a family, and then we did. He agreed to and enjoyed it. But at the same time, he knew to provide for the families had to work extra hard.
Performing artist, musician, there's never enough time in the day to do everything you want to do. You have to make choices.
The power of being able to tell people and become being an outsider, but to actually take an insider art form and do it so well, that power, I think, commands a lot of respect.
I like to think of music as a bridge. It can take you to that nameless, timeless place. So let's go find someplace together.
There it is. Well, I think you're muted, Higashi-san. Higashi-san, I think you're muted.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Okay, so can Chiaki-san join us to explain about this film a little bit more? Chiaki
Sure.
Yanagimto-san.
Sure. Yeah, thanks again for having us on this panel. I'm a producer of this film along with David and another producer, Mike. And yeah, I mean, David explained the story and behind the scenes story of the film, journey of the production of the film really nicely. But if I would add to that, I think for me, at the beginning of this process, I didn't know too much about John as a musician. I just knew that he was a significant figure in the shakuhachi industry, but I didn't know too much. But I got to learn a lot about him as a musician, but also we got to meet a lot of people in the shakuhachi industry, shakuhachi performing industry, and also Japanese traditional music industry. And we got to learn a lot about his music, the music of shakuhachi, and also the power of the music of shakuhachi. So that was really nice to learn what kind of power it has. And yeah, the film is, it is a story about family. It is a story about artists. It is a story about passion. So I think as much, it is a story about John as a musician and his life journey, but I think everybody can find something to that they can relate to. If you are, especially if you're an artist or anyone who has something to be passionate about, I think it's a good story to observe.
Okay, thank you very much. And I started cultural news about 20 years ago to introduce traditional Japanese art and culture music in Los Angeles. Until, when I was in Japan, I'm not interested in Japanese tradition at all. However, after I came to Los Angeles, I start paying attention to Japanese music. So we have the Ken Koshio from the Phoenix, Arizona. Ken, can you tell us your experience in regarding your culture encounter from the American to Japanese?
Yes, everybody, really, thank you very much for letting me be in this beautiful and powerful panelers gathering. Thank you. And if you are watching this one, it's really great opportunity to understand our kind of world today because the title of the words cannot go there. That's exactly what I feel to play music. So I was born and raised in Nagoya, Japan back in 1966. So I want to be a Japanese Neil Young when I was younger. So it means I've been a songwriter and then also kind of cultural kind of a hippie movement kind of a dreamer. So I was born a little later than that generations. Always look up that kind of a way to utilize music. So then I've been a street singer for a long time when I was younger, around in Japan like your dad was doing on the streets. So it means for me, music is for entertainment, but at the same time, the tool of discipline. So maybe that's a kind of Japanese way to utilize, the things, everything we use, say, do, judo, shakuhachi do, kendo. I can say right now I'm doing the taekwondo. So anyways, those kind of Taoism discipline with something. Even I used to play rugby. Maybe I can do a rugby do too. So, and when I came to this country back in 1998, first time 1996, I was traveling around this country for 3 months as a backpacker because my career as a singer-songwriter in Japan was not successful. So I was almost quitting. And my root to music was coming from this country. So I wanted to listen to Hotel California, Take It Easy in LA. So that's a kind of a meaning that, songs behind the scene of stories. So then when I met a lot of people, especially in New Orleans, one old gentleman was playing on the street blues music. So that really suited me. Okay, I cannot be a Mick Jagger, but if I could be like this gentleman, even getting old, still play something really genuine and powerful. So then I decided to come to this country back in 1998 to live in this country. So like Shige Higashi-san said, same thing. When I was in Japan, I didn't care of my cultural background, the Japanese culture, music. Always I look up to UK music, Hollywood movies. But when I came here, started to do the same thing in Hollywood, Venice Beach, Santa Monica, all over the area in LA. I knew my English is still second language. Still, I try to express like writing in lyrics in English, but doesn't work. Even Japanese, I cannot be like Mishima Yukio. So those are complex. Been doing a lot of things. Then somehow after 9/11 happened, I met the lady, woman. Her name is Esther Bandikar. She is the taiko master now in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But she went to Hiroshima, Japan when she was younger. Then she learned traditional taiko music, even 1,000 years old of the songs from Master Itsuki Munakata. He's right now still 83 years old. So anyways, so she brought back to Phoenix. Then I started learn those songs from her. So now, long story short, I never ever to be interested to learn Japanese taiko drumming because it's more like a ceremonial. It's not music for me. And especially if you know that one of the religious kind of group is called Tendikyo, So they're kind of a ceremonial kind of a way. They're using like kagura music, taiko, kyoshigi, chanchiki. So my mom belonged to that group of people since I was little. Always listened to music. So nothing was not rock and roll music. So, but once I banged the drums, my really deep inside of awakening. So I tried to play reggae music, rock and roll, blues really well, but didn't reach there. But the whole my vibration of the rhythm and the kind of feeling, I got it. Oh, yeah, it's me. So now, kind of backwards of your kind of stories, I found in this country who I was with that type of music. Plus, like you said, words cannot go there. So it means lyrics I can express well, but the taiko beats and especially big odaiko, the different dimensions kind of stuff, it's more free to feel, and then also the vibration goes to really to the universe that been feeling. So Kenny Endo Sensei was saying that Masakazu Yoshikazu Sensei, he is my first teacher to learn fue. But also he told me more like a hogaku because I used to live in Los Angeles. He was my buddy in the music, but to learn hogaku, he was my master. And the Kenny Sensei was also one of my sensei. So, anyways, now I'm going to Japan to learn my traditional music, and it just happens that Hiroshima Taiko Hozonkai, the song is being played for a long time in locally, but also I'm I want to be a peace activist with the music. So this one also taught people with the traditional Japanese music and learning Hiroshima Bang in the music and share with the people internationally. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and now let's go to Saeko Kujiraoka-san. Can you hear me? Kujiraoka-san, お願いします。
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening. So far we had cultural exchange experience for the American people discover Japanese music, and Japanese people rediscover Japanese music. So in your case, you are always on Japanese music. And can you tell us your experience when you played Japanese music in Los Angeles or other city in US? How do you, what is American people's reactions, and how do you feel from them?
Okay, so I was born and raised in Japan. So I started to learn piano when I was 5 years old. But I like to play piano, but most of my friends learned piano. So I want to learn something nobody learned. So that time is hogaku is not popular, the young people. So now, I think, at the elementary or junior high, it's have a hogaku class. It's, I think, nowadays. So also, some of the manga, it's very popular. It's a hogaku. It's called what's it called? It's Konoto Tomare. That the manga is very popular. So there's many, high school student to learn koto and have a competition like that. But that, when I was a kid, so it's not popular. So and about 30 years ago, so I came to United States and started to teach and have a performance at Japanese culture event and the school culture program or library or parties. So, but I was surprised, but most of audience or guests, don't know about the koto. So, and some of them are interested in traditional, Japanese music, but most of, the new listener seems to be, bored listening to it. So, because, traditional Japanese music is slow and long and, they cannot understand the meaning of the singing, part, So the people likes to listen to song they know. So I try to perform not only traditional pieces, but some up-tempo music, and try to I start to arranging some song that the non-Japanese knows. That like Beatles, Carpenters, and Michael Jackson, and so on. So, and I started, when I start to play this kind of music song, so, and they often stop and listen. So, and they are interested in about the koto and the koto sound. Oh, koto sound is beautiful like that. So in that way, I hope my performance will be a chance to introduce and make them interested in or step in different culture music. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, there is a very good point. As a music, American people are not interested in Japanese music, but as an instrument, they open up their eye to listening to music. Okay, thank you very much. Very good viewpoint. Okay, then we go to the Alan Gleason. Alan, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So Alan Gleason participates from the Tokyo's. He is editor of Artscape Japan. This is English language magazine on the web, introduced Japanese, museums exhibition in Japan, not only Japanese, but all kind of music. And also he knows about Hogaku music very well. And so can you tell us your impression on this tonight meeting? And can you add some of your opinions?
Well, I don't think I have any opinions worth expressing. I'm impressed most of all by the commitment all the people here have shown to their pursuit.
Yeah, I cannot see your face. Can you turn on your mic? Okay, I got
yeah.
it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, most of the folks here have been extremely dedicated to their music. Most of you shakuhachi, but other instruments too. And I was just a dabbler. I did study Nagauta Shamisen in Tokyo for 4 years in my 20s, and with Sugiura Hirokazu. And that had a profound effect on my life, but in kind of ways I didn't predict. I wasn't really in love with the shamisen the way many people, I think, fall in love with an instrument like with the sound of the shakuhachi. I simply wanted to learn a little bit more about what made Japanese music tick, and the only instrument I could play was the guitar. So I just thought, well, stringed instrument, shakuhachi, maybe a biwa. It turned out biwas were very expensive, so I went with shamisen. That's what I meant, shamisen. So but it turned out to be a profound experience. First of all, as a discipline, to actually formally study an instrument with such intensity, and to do it in the Japanese way, which, as we all know, involves pretty much kind of rote reproduction of what your teacher teaches you, and essentially no questions asked. And I liked that. I didn't want to ask questions like, why does it work this way? Why not this way? So that was a good study and discipline, and it opened my eyes just serendipitously to other musics. I actually became even more enamored of Okinawa and Yaeyama folk music and studied the sanshin. And in some ways was more attracted to that than to the Nagauta tradition on shamisen. And then I eventually wound up getting into jazz, and I'm now an upright jazz bassist. And but one of the reasons it was easy to pick up the bass in middle age, I think, was because it's a fretless instrument, and so was the shamisen. That may sound superficial, but the shamisen opened a lot of doors for me. But I just continued to be a dabbler, and it never really affected me as deeply as some of you folks, your choices of instruments. And I think that it's true that in America, at least, most people are not going to come to appreciate Japanese music because it is so different. The scales are different. The so-called lack of harmony can be off-putting to people. Even the rhythms may not be as compelling as what people are used to hearing. So I think that it's always going to be something that attracts people because it resonated with them personally, and not out of any particular attraction to the music itself. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's a really blanket statement, and I'm not qualified to generalize like that, but that's my overall impression.
I think you're absolutely right. In a lot of ways, a lot of folks who are getting into these instruments, they really have no intention of really trying to delve any deeper into the tradition itself, unless very specifically they got into it for the traditional aspects. Like a lot of shakuhachi players get into it for the Zen music. So that's something else. But as Sayeko-san was saying, mixing the musics together a little bit so that the instruments can become a little more accessible, I think that's a really, really valid way of approaching making it more accessible to people. There's a yearly event that happens in Colorado. We call it Shakuhachi Summer Camp. And it's an event that happens in the foothills of the Rockies, where about 35, maybe 40 shakuhachi players get together with 4 or 5 shakuhachi senseis. And over the years, one night of the 5 nights that we're there is devoted to just playing arranged together. I mean, all 35 people at the same time. And when I first came to the camp, they were using traditional Japanese folk songs and things, which was fine. And there were also some religious songs that were being translated into shakuhachi music. And I hit upon the idea of doing very much what Sayeko-san was saying about taking music like James Brown and making shakuhachi arrangements. So I would do a 5-part shakuhachi arrangement of I Feel Good. And at first I was doing it mainly because I was just enjoying it myself. But people were telling me that they actually found a way into it by having very familiar music, because they knew I Feel Good. They knew what it sounded like already. They didn't know how to play it necessarily, but here was an opportunity to play it on a different instrument, but it was way in for them. And actually I have to thank John somewhat for that very thing, because he did a lot of records back when he was touring of arrangements of American and British pop tunes, and that stuck with me. So yeah, I mean, when I do a 6-part arrangement of Mercy, 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 I'm having a ball, and hopefully everyone else is too. But it's a way in. It's a way to make it accessible, and I think it works.
So there are still a big difference between Japanese music and the Western music. And the taste of the Japanese listeners and American listeners are so much different. But there is a bridge between two different cultures. So, and the distance of culture is still very far away, but we are making it getting shorter or much closer. And today's program is one of such a attempt or our effort to get together to understand each others. And I have two hopes. So one is the American people getting to like Japanese music more. And at the same time, Japanese people keep the original format, original style of music as much as possible. That because the culture is changing so first, we are losing a very important part of the cultures. And are there any comments? Hi, dozo, Ken-san.
So I have a question, belong to kind of Shigesan's, rules. Elliot-san, so you have a perfect pitches, right? Is that correct?
Perfect pitch? No.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I have good absolute pitch, but not perfect pitch.
Well, because like I said, for me, taiko music, Shamisen, is like a folk music. It's not like a classic music. So like we can sing those kind of melody lines, pentatonics already in us. So if you have a kind of a perfect pitch like Alan-san said, so that's how sometimes shakuhachi, especially those natural thing kind of instruments, not like a flute, piano sound supposed to be 441, kind of stuff. So it doesn't bother you guys to play those instruments?
Oh heck yeah! I play in a taiko group too.
Right, so just you think as it is.
You get used to it. I mean, when you hear traditional music, very often a lot of, especially fue,
right.
A lot of fue when they're playing together, they are nowhere close to each other in pitch, and you get used to it. It's a different sound, is all. So after a while, if you hear it often enough, it's quite exciting. But it takes getting used to, absolutely, to Western ears especially.
Yeah, because like Saiko-san said, so today we even play shakuhachi, even those bamboo flutes. We know the numbers, means the pitches, basically not perfect, but a little bit meru karu, kind of flat and sharp things, and then also numbers can make the more like a easy to matching or jamming with a Western instrument. But I think those kind of folk music, even Indian music or Native American music, it's like a direct in different languages. So, just Shige-san said, so try to keep the tradition, but maybe we're speaking in Japanese maybe 100 years ago, and then 200 years ago, maybe we have different kind of way to express it. So, just I was wonder, what do you think, guys, how to matching those stuff also?
I have to say, for me, I was attracted to the sound. It's a deeper sound that I don't know. There's just something there versus like a Western music. It doesn't go past a certain point. Whereas Japanese music, it's something you feel inside. There's something kind of a deeper meaning, and it seems to just be like go on for layers and layers. And I think considering Japan is 2,000 years old, the history is just so deep and so long. So that feeling comes out through that like traditional music. And that, I think for me, that's what I was attracted to. Nothing to do with Western music at all. It's just, what is that sound? And it's just like, wow, that's just like, there's something there. And you want to figure it out and you dig and dig and dig. And it's just like endless for me. Even though it's so simple, it's kind of endless. If that makes sense at all, I don't know.
Well.
I liked Ken-san's analogy about language, how it's essentially the same language, but the passage of time, it changes, it organically evolves. And I think music is similar in that respect, especially Japanese music. If you take shamisen music, Tsugaru shamisen music, it's changed drastically in just recent history, maybe the last few decades, but it's kind of, I view it as like an audio snapshot of the culture, sort of where shamisen music is right now in this world. And right now it's managing to find new people who might not be Japanese who are interested in the music. And I think that's a really interesting, that'll be an interesting footnote in the history of shamisen, that it sort of expanded beyond the borders of Japan at a certain point and became a more widely known instrument throughout the world. And I think that's exciting. And I think a lot of artists can't help but reflect things like that in the music when they play it. So that's what I find so fascinating about music like John Kaizan Neptunes and such. And he's using traditional techniques, but he's bringing his own personality to it, his own story to it, and by doing that, it's when you listen to it, you're hearing sort of a development in the story of shakuhachi. And so I love that too about folk music, is it just evolves in organic ways that are sometimes kind of unpredictable or wild or new or far out there, but it reflects the culture. It reflects what's happening to people. And that's what I like about it.
Yes, everything is changing. Culture is evolving. And without evolutions, anything could not survive. So the traditional Japanese music may change, evolve, with the non-Japanese artist effort. And so let's see how traditional music will be changing. And so thank you very much, everybody, to participate Miracle Night. This is really miracle conversations for me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So thank you very much, 30 participants to hear our conversations. So thank you very much. So I hope we have this kind of meeting soon. Okay, さようなら。ありがとうございました。
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. さようなら。ありがとう。
Mike? He's gone. Darn. I'm going to answer a question for him.
はい。Alan, thank you very much. ありがとう。
Oh, it's a pleasure.
はい。では、これで終わります。
Meet you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
Yes.
See you.
One question to